Katie Pavlich from townhall.com was at the hearing today. She joins us now to talk about it. Katie, good evening.
Good evening to you, sir.
Glad you could be with us tonight. It's been a long day for you, I know.
It has. It's always worth it to be on your show, so we can make time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And look, I mean, this was, without a doubt, a huge deal in Washington today, especially compared to Monday's hearing, where I understand, not a lot of press in attendance, kind of a sleepy crowd. But today, I mean, the atmosphere was electric in there, in part because of just the damning testimony after damning testimony that we heard from ATF officials. And then, of course, the utter lack of a response from the Department of Justice congressional liaison, Ronald Weiss, who didn't really seem to have any answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess the positive thing you can pull out of this is that this is getting exposed, and a lot of the time you have congressional hearings on Capitol Hill that go nowhere. So it is a good thing that we're kind of moving forward with this. More people are starting to pay attention. Like you said, on Monday there wasn't as much attention at the hearing because it was more of a wonky type of hearing, determining whether the Congressional Oversight Committee actually had the authority to investigate the executive branch in this case, and everyone there who was, doing witness testimony did say that they do have the authority to do so, so they've moved forward. But, Darrell Issa today wasn't messing around, and he was not impressed when, Justice Department witness Mr. Weiss could not provide any information, refused to provide information, and then on top of it lied about the Justice Department, saying that they had been complying with the subpoena request by the Oversight Committee. So it just, it was nice to see the ATF agents come forward and give us some, a first-hand look at what's really going on there. It was very, you already talked about it, but it was really disappointing to see the ranking member of the committee, Elijah Cummings, blaming this on the Second Amendment. His exact words are, we need to look at why our gun laws aren't strong enough, rather than the missteps of law enforcement. So,
that Katie, that gets it so backwards, because you can have any gun law that Elijah Cummings would want to put on the books, but if law enforcement agencies are allowing the law to be broken, it really doesn't matter.
When you have Kenneth Nelson in his cushy ATF, multi-million-dollar office.
Oh, it's a brand new office. Yes, it's very lovely.
Go on, and then denying it on the other end. No amount of gun laws is going to help anyone when the government is the one instigating this entire process and using the Second Amendment and law-abiding gun shop owners as the scapegoat.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's ridiculous. And that was actually disgusting to me. I mean, you have this extreme level of corruption at the highest level with Operation Fast and Furious, and then on top of it, you have even more corruption with some of the Democrats on the committee trying to blame this on gun laws not being strong enough rather than incompetent law enforcement officials working within ATF. And ATF has a history of being incompetent. This is nothing new.
Here was one of the more interesting exchanges, and this comes after Representative Issa had talked to Ronald Weiss from the Department of Justice and was trying to get an answer. Just a really simple question of who authorized this, who knew about this in Washington, D.C., and then after that questioning was over, you heard this obviously the first time around, but here is what Representative Cummings had to say to Ronald Weiss after that exchange with Representative Issa.
Mr. Weiss, let me apologize for that. You don't deserve that. Perhaps somebody else in the department does. What is your role? What's your job?
I'm the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legislative Affairs, Congressman.
And these are not the decisions that you make, are they? The questions that he was just asking about, the chairman was asking about?
That's correct.
And as I've said many times, there's a certain level of integrity that we must maintain in this committee. I see this committee as just lower than a court. And I know, and I've said it to the chairman, and I'll say it over and over again, you've got to go home to your family. You've got colleagues who are watching this, and for you to be hollered at and treated that way, I just think it's unfair. And so on behalf of the committee, I apologize.
Would the gentleman yield?
No, I will not yield. I'm trying to talk to the witness. I didn't interrupt you.
No, and you didn't, I
But
didn't,
I'll
I didn't
yield.
say things
I'll
on
yield
behalf
as long
of
as I
the
get
committee.
the time.
Hold the time. Would the gentleman please note, you may apologize on behalf of something you say. I am not apologetic,
Fine.
and you may not apologize
I-
on behalf of the committee.
thank you.
The gentleman may resume.
Let me say this. I apologize. Because we're better than that. We're better than that. And I do hope that we bring the appropriate people who can answer those questions. And even when they come, they should not be treated that way.
You know, that's pretty flippin' amazing, Katie, that
Yes.
the apology we heard today was not from the Department of Justice, was not from any ATF official. It was from Elijah Cummings, the a ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, apologizing to the DOJ congressional liaison if those questions were just a little too tough.
Yeah, it's a question of who authorized it. Apparently, it was too much for the gentleman to answer. But on that note, Elijah Cummings was extremely inappropriate in terms of what he was saying throughout the entire hearing. At one point, he was lecturing the mother of Border Patrol Agent Brian Terry about how to deal with death and that life can come out of death. And he was lecturing the entire room, and in particular her, about how to deal with this tragedy. And it was extremely, extremely inappropriate. So, and I did appreciate Darrell Issa stepping up and saying, no, you don't apologize for me. And I appreciated the fact that he was willing to stand up and say, this is not something that should be taken lightly. I meant what I said. I meant it with the firmness that I said it, because the DOJ is lying. And they're lying under oath and testimony. And someone ordered it, and they're refusing to take accountability for it. And so I'm glad that Darrell stood up and said, buddy, I don't need you apologizing for me.
Absolutely.
You feel like you need to apologize to ATF or the DOJ official in front of you, that's fine, but do not act like this is the statement from the Oversight Committee, and it's definitely not the statement from me.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if anybody was supposed to apologize today, I don't think it was the House Oversight Committee. Katie, I got to ask. I mean, as you sat there, you've been covering this story. You had a big piece in Town Hall magazine about Fast and Furious, and yet all of the new details that were revealed today. Did you expect that we would hear as much new information from this committee as we heard?
No, I didn't actually. And today was pretty intense in terms of the hearing was, I think, about 5 hours long, 4 or 5 hours long. There were different witness testimony that came through. You had Senator Grassley first, then you had the ATF agents, and then you had Mr. Weish from the Justice Department. And we did get a lot of information, firsthand accounts. And this is we got a lot of information at the hearing today, but this is before the Justice Department has even given the Oversight Committee any documentation about what's really going on. So I think this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how much information we're really going to see about this operation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I mean, as revealing as today's hearings were, still far more questions than answers at this point.
Right. Well, what I thought was really interesting today is they kind of pointed out some of the numbers, how many guns were put into the hands of the drug cartels. And the most interesting number to me was that 76% of the guns that were given through ATF, under ATF authority, to these straw purchasers, there was 5 straw purchasers who obtained 76% of the guns.
I'm
so
sorry,
the only thing
how many?
ATF had
How
to
many
do
did
was
you
stop
say?
5 guys.
5.
5 straw purchasers purchased 76% of the weapons that were given to the drug cartels through Operation Fast and Furious. 5 of them.
Wow. That is...
And you look at that and say, wow, this wasn't even, 100 straw purchasers. This wasn't that big of an operation. This was 5 guys conducting this operation.
Well, that's one of the other excuses that we heard today, that this was an ATF manpower issue, Katie, and really what we need is just more funding for the ATF. I mean, that was one of the other excuses that was floated today, even by some pundits. I think this evening we heard that. But again, if you're talking about 5 guys responsible for 76% of the firearms that were involved in Fast and Furious, this isn't a manpower issue. And did any of those ATF agents say that gosh, if we only had more staff, we could have stopped this?
No, actually, in fact, Special Agent Porcelli said, exact quote, "We had all the resources we needed." He said that in testimony. So it's not a matter of resources. I don't think giving these people, especially the supervisors in Washington, D.C., any more power and funding is going to, make the problem any better. But my favorite accusation of the day came from the New York Times when they said that gun ownership is such an ingrained part of the culture in Arizona, where it is not legal to buy multiple weapons at a time, that it is difficult to tell straw purchasers from legal ones without conducting surveillance to determine how the guns were being used. Unnamed source said that.
Really?
So apparently it's too difficult to tell, even though in testimony today, all the special agents who were there today said they knew exactly who these straw purchasers were before they came into the gun shop. They knew who they were, when they were coming, and when they left. There was no question about who these guys were.
Well, Katie, as many twists and turns as the story has taken so far, I think we're just getting started. I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon. Hold on for the ride, people, because it's going to get ugly.
No kidding. Katie Pavlich with townhall.com.